couple of armchair GMs who have yet to be wrong with any of their Timberwolves takes. Right. It's Flagrant Howls with Phil Mackey and Kyle Theige.
Now, I, for one, think there's a lot of positives to take away here after this game one. Listen, the Wolves played the Nuggets even up, 22-22 in the fourth quarter. They got Nikola Jokic to foul out. 6 fouls for Jokic. I think some good momentum to carry over into game 2.
Chris Finch extended his bench. He played 13 guys tonight. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, how look at the depth on this team. A 13-man rotation in a playoff game. I mean, incredible.
This is probably not where you start after a game like that, game 1 of a playoff series. I think he's probably a great guy. I can't watch Nate Knight play basketball again. That guy is LA Fitness on meth. Like that. I mean, he had no interest in really making an extra pass. Again, Nuggets 109, Wolves 80, and we're talking about Nate Knight, but that was just atrocity across the board. But I'll throw it to you. I mean, you probably have a lot of things to say. I have some other things to say too, but I want you to kick it off. I'll let you cook.
Sometimes, I think this might be my thing for some of these playoff games. I just want to say I will not be overreacting to the first game of a 7-game playoff series here.
Do you mean that?
You're not going to hear me like doing all the whole like who should they trade this summer thing. Like I'll do that after they get bounced from the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do have. It might be fun for. I tend to take just like notes throughout. I'll just like write takes as the game is going on. Like early in the game, one of them was Jordan McLaughlin remains awful. Should they put Austin Rivers in the rotation? And they did. They put Austin Rivers in. I'm just going to read you 3 of my highlighted takes here. These are straight from the raw notes here, Kyle. Okay, this is raw emotion as we watch that game. The Timberwolves are so talented, but ... also so often disorganized, undisciplined, and emotionally unintelligent.
Yeah, I'm guessing the emotionally unintelligent thing was that probably the Kyle stuff? Kyle Anderson getting into
everything. It's so emotional. To me, basketball emotional intelligence is the ability to. I'm going to steal a phrase from. I've brought this up on the show before, from George Mumford, who I sat one of the most fun, coolest podcast interviews I ever did was like 7 or 8 years ago. He was Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, basically Phil Jackson's traveling mental coach, and he defined emotional intelligence as the ability on a basketball court, the ability to put space between the mechanism and the response. The mechanism being pressure, crowd noise, a run by the opponent, whatever it is that's happening. Can you put a space between it, calm down, take a deep breath, and still push forward? And whether it's just Kyle Anderson getting into a fight with a random guy, or whether it's Karl-Anthony Towns being unable to slow the game down in big moments and process, or Anthony Edwards, as a 21-year-old, there's just so many things about this team. It's not the most talented team in the NBA, but it feels like the sum of the parts don't equal the parts, even with guys like Jaden McDaniels. And by the way, it does sometimes. It certainly did against Oklahoma City was one of the best games we've seen them play. The first 3 quarters against the Lakers in the play-in game. Sometimes you see it. And that's why it's so frustrating when you see a game like, this might have been the worst game they've played all season collectively. But it feels to me like it's too often chaos and too often disorganized and not adding up to what the sum should be with this team.
Yeah, again, how are you going to push back against any criticism from what happened against Denver, which finished on a Monday, by the way? I had to get this off before we move into other stuff. Like, I don't know many people that are worse at their jobs than Adam Silver. I don't know how this game tipped off at 10 o'clock your time or whatever, but that's neither here nor there. Just an atrocity of the scheduling today across the board to focus everything on Lakers, Grizzlies, and then just be like, hey, the Nuggets were really awesome. First time they were the 1 seed in the Western Conference. Let's just put their game on at like 9 o'clock Mountain Time so all the young fans of Denver can't watch. Anyway.
Real quick on that note, I get, because a lot of people were correctly saying, wait a second, you had a Phoenix-LA game in the earlier slot too. Like, couldn't that game have gone on last? And I get like wanting Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers and the LA market. I get wanting that to be your Sunday primetime slot game and putting another game later, but You could have moved everything up 1 hour and started that game at the end at 8:30 instead of 9:30 Central Time. So
we've started this podcast with Nate Knight and scheduling. I know that that's on me, but the fact that the first NBA game on a Sunday was at noon on the West Coast was an embarrassment. But anyway, no, I mean, everything you said is right. The tough thing, and I'm glad you said that you weren't going to overreact, because you and I are still forming our own chemistry, and I was trying to kind of gauge where you're at. They got punched in the mouth early in the first. That's what I had my notes. And then they actually responded. Like the first quarter was, I thought, a positive for them. Second quarter, they kind of grinded. Obviously, they're down like 10 and a half or something. But then that third quarter, all of the criticisms you just said, emotional, like unintelligent, just everything that's bad about this team fit, right? I mean, they had 3 straight possessions where they tried to get the ball to Rudy, all turnovers. Denver wants to run on you. They get points in transition on all those things. Everything that you don't like about the first 84 games of this season, everything you don't like about this roster, about this team, about their body language, was on display tonight.
Yeah.
So I think we should throw a couple more punches, no pun intended, and just kind of take shots at them. But I will just say, and this is it. I just look at this stuff differently than the first 84 games. Like they're an embarrassment. They look terrible. They have the same amount of losses as the Bucks and the Suns. I don't think they're the Bucks. I don't think they're the Suns. But I also, if it wasn't the Wolves and the Nuggets playing tonight, my dad always says, series doesn't start until the home team loses. I don't really care that they lost by 29. I just don't. I mean, they were so bad. There's nothing to take from it, really. And that's, if you're like trying to be overly concerned, it's that up and down the box score, I think the 2 things I would probably take away from the game is that, they shot 30% from 3. They had 36 attempts. Sometimes it's just if they make a couple of those, it stems the tide and it kind of keeps you in the fight longer. And then I actually maybe think the Jokic elbow on Ant might be something we talk about later. Because he kind of looked pissed off, and then he was grabbing rebounds, getting blocked shots. Again, it was all in garbage time, all meaningless. But like, I think that's what the Kyle stuff was too. It's clownish, right? When you're down 25 to start a fight, it's clownish to do that stuff. But I think this team just, again, because they are emotionally unintelligent, and they don't always bring it, they needed some sort of spark. I think that's what Kyle tried. I think that's what the Jokic elbow was. But yeah, I don't really care. It's 0-1. I will be much more pitchforky if they get swept or they lose by 25 on Friday at home. It's just no one played well. Rudy was minus 28. I saw a stat that all of Jokic's shots, I think, came in the paint, and that's against what we deem as like one of the biggest teams in the league. So if Jokic is like super comfortable taking all the shot attempts from the paint against Rudy and Karl, that's also not good. So, nothing to hang your hat on if you're Minnesota. Really, all you do is just like, okay, that was one game. Let's rest up and see if we can hit some shots on Wednesday and try some new things. But every player, up and down all 13 guys, was bad. Every one of them.
Well, I do think there are a lot of things negatively to hang your hat on, but I want to see. I'm with you in general in that whether you lost by 5 or lost by 29, okay, like there's a game 2 coming up. It doesn't count just because you lost by 29. There were some red flags in here. I think the fact that you played 4 games against the Nuggets in the regular season and held your own. You beat them twice. They decided to. There was a home and home back-to-back, if I recall, and they sat their starters, or at least Jokic, and the Wolves beat them, and then they came back and were up by like 30 points in the first quarter in the next game. So Jokic missed one of the games in which the Wolves beat the Nuggets, but Cat missed all 4 of the games between the Wolves and the Nuggets, which could mean one of 2 things. It could mean, hey, well, let's see what happens when you inject Cat into a 7-game series. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, sometimes you see what happens with Cat and Gobert. There's just weird games and matchups, and the early returns here after one game with both those guys playing against the Nuggets for the first time all season is, I don't know that's going to be. They're going to have to find a way either through changing up what they do on offense, running more pick and roll, trying to get Jokic in foul trouble early in a close game instead of in a 30-point game. They're going to have to do some different things, or they're going to have to drastically minimize Rudy Gobert's minutes at some point if it keeps looking like this. That's one of the things they have to confront here in the next game or 2.
And by the way, it's not an excuse. It's just like watching the game. I saw you tweet this out. Again, it just like, if this is the Rudy Gobert that exists on planet Earth, that's horrendous and that's terrible. I just think his back must still be. He just doesn't get off the ground. And like, there's a lot of Utah people now that are covering this series just to keep writing about basketball. And they were all like, there's no way he's right. Because Mike Conley had a couple lobs to him where it's like, even 30-year-old Rudy's got like, he's going to finish that or at least catch it. But he just didn't provide anything offensively or defensively. Yeah, 8 points, 13 rebounds. He did have one good possession where like he blocked Jokic after like 4 or 5 spin moves. It kind of gave a little life to the team. But yeah, I mean, that the concern, like I said, it's just one loss. You know, you win Wednesday, like you're not going to feel the same way you do now. But the concerning things is that Rudy and Karl it looks so clunky. It just doesn't look right when there's 2 of them on the floor. And then Ant, who I think is starting to find himself a little bit, has his legs under him again, seems like he's over the illness. But Dane Moore tweeted this out too. Like, he just has no chemistry with Rudy after 84 games. And like,
it's bad.
Bad because there are moments where by the way,
yeah, it's just you don't see anything.
There's moments where Rudy's open. Like, there's moments where the Rudy Gobert thing is working, but it's just Ant doesn't see him, and Ant's playmaking has gone leaps and bounds, but it's still pretty muted for what it should be on this level. So, I mean, because I've seen some people in my mentions or our mentions be like, they should have just never made the playoffs. Even if they get swept, and this is for down the road, but like, this is actually really important. Like, you want to see this stuff, even if it fails, you want to see it fail multiple times on the biggest stage. Yeah. Because that's how you then learn, like, you know, like if they would have gotten beat by the Thunder, they could have pulled out all different excuses and variety of different things. Like, you kind of want to see this either work, make adjustments on Wednesday, or just fail. In that third quarter, everything failed. Ant stands around. Karl and Ant combined for 2 for 11 from 3. I thought Karl had good looks, but you got to make those, right? When it's going in, you're stretching the defense, you're making Jokic work. They didn't make Jokic work at all on defense. I mean, he fouled out, but I honestly have no idea how.
I know it was kind of weird, and like he fouled out. He only played. Did he play 30 minutes? He played 28 minutes. He fouled out in 28 minutes, and it was like he committed a couple fouls in garbage time too. It was just what a weird. I'm with you. I don't know how he collected 6 fouls in that game.
He subbed in with like a 28-point lead. That was weird too. I don't know. Like they obviously tried putting Karl on Jokic, Rudy on him, Kyle a little bit. Kyle is one of my favorite players and a linchpin to all of the success that they've had this year, albeit not as much as we thought they should have. But he just has no chance against Jokic, and that's not a slight on Kyle. It's just you got to have some sort of girth to guard that man, and he just doesn't have it.
But Cat doesn't either.
That's Cat doesn't either. That's why you're gonna have to get creative and maybe just double him. And I mean, they made Aaron Gordon shoot tonight. He was 2 for 4 from 3, but I think his 2 misses were air balls. Like, you just gotta probably, and it's not an excuse. It's just what the cards are. Like, if you don't have Jaden and you don't have Nas, you're probably just gonna have to say, like, if you're protecting your fortress, we're going to cover this door, and this door, but we're going to leave that back door open, and if they find it and they get in, that's it. And that's kind of like letting Aaron Gordon shoot, but they're going to have to give up something. The concerning thing for me, Phil, the number one thing, Jamal Murray, I know he's 9 for 22, but he had like some swag to him. He had some like bubbled Jamal Murray, and if you followed the Nuggets at all, he's kind of been up and down and trying to regain himself after tearing his ACL a couple of years ago. He looked like he was on one. He was coming around screens, ripping threes, and he was unguardable. And that's just, you can't have that. And that's going to be on Ant too. Like, I was watching Devin Booker guard in that Clippers-Suns game, and he was just going hard 2 ways. Like, I'm going to be the best defender on my team, and I'm going to probably be one of the best offensive players on my team. They need that from Ant. There's no more excuses. You get 2 days off between games. Yeah. You have to play 38 minutes, and you have to literally be Jaden defensively, and you have to be all-star Ant offensively, or it's going to be a quick series.
It's weird because Ant revved it in the second quarter. He just kind of took over for a little bit. He was hitting some mid-range, getting to the rim. He even missed a couple layups, but he was getting to the rack in a regular. There was actually a really key sequence when I think it was like around a 5-point game or somewhere in there, and he misses a layup. There might have been a non-foul called, but then the Nuggets, who are one of the best transition teams in the NBA, come all the way back, and I can't remember who hit the 3, but they hit a 3 in the corner. It might have been Michael Porter Jr., who is insanely hard to guard in transition because he's just a freight train. Mm-hmm. I want to say, I think your old platform, Canis Hoopus, they did a great preview for this series, and I want to say that they dug up that Michael Porter Jr. shoots like 50% from 3 in transition, and he's an athletic house that can get to. That's the problem. Like, if in live rebound situations, if the Nuggets get out running, and especially if you've got Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns in the game, you're not stopping them. Mm-hmm. So you either need to hit shots at a high clip and prevent live rebound situations, or you need to somehow get your asses back with Gobert with a bad back, and Towns is kind of a big plotter. So if the Nuggets get out and run, if the Wolves, this is the problem. Like if the Wolves shoot 37%, which they probably won't the rest of the series, and half their shots are threes, which are coming off advantageous rebounds for the Nuggets to get out in transition, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to get smoked.
Yep.
Not only because you're not making shots, but because your missed shots are playing right into one of their biggest strengths, which is transition and open looks from threes off transition ball movement. So, real quick, can I just give you my second one here? Because you might reach across and punch me for this, but I stand firm in this one. Okay. Again, I will preface this by saying, when Cat is playing at his peak, he's one of the 15-ish best players in the league. When you get composed, peak Karl-Anthony Towns, first 3 quarters against the Lakers, Karl-Anthony Towns. I would say the entire game against Oklahoma City, Karl-Anthony Towns. He is one of the 15 to 20 best players in the NBA, all right? But he can't tap into his peak nearly as often as you'd like in these big games. And I'm watching this game tonight, and this wasn't even like a great Jokic game. It was kind of a clunky Jokic game, but he was grabbing rebounds, he was making plays, he was getting his shot. Like he was doing he's got these old school post moves that he's putting. He's like got the Elijah one, triple deke over here. So my take is Nikola Jokic is everything you hoped Karl-Anthony Towns would have been. They're the same age, about 6 months apart. One was the number 1 pick, another one was nowhere near the number 1 pick. I think Jokic has I think this is his 9th season in the NBA. Towns 8th season. But Jokic is always poised, always makes the right play. When he gets doubled, which, by the way, I saw some people commenting like, why don't they double Jokic? Because when Jokic gets doubled, he always makes the right play. Jim Pete had the nugget. When Jokic gets 10 or more assists in a game, the Nuggets are 34-4. So you can run a double at him, but it's kind of like, remember watching KG 20 years ago? You want to double team KG? All right, he's just going to hold the ball up and rifle a pass to Hoiberg wide open in the corner, right? Like that's Jokic with 4 shooters around him. So he's just always poised, always makes the right play, rarely gets flustered by circumstances. He's got 2 or 3 moves he can always go to offensively. And it feels like Cat, when it comes to these playoff games, or even like playing games, the game against the Clippers last year, it's almost like he's staring at the same Rubik's Cube time and time again, and sometimes he solves it, like the game against Oklahoma City. Oh my God, he solved the Rubik's Cube. But then sometimes he just like stares at an incomplete Rubik's Cube and throws it off the wall and gets mad. And like that's what it felt like again tonight. And you've probably seen I think this is his 13th playoff game. When you count, or maybe it's his 12th, because Rockets was a 5-game series and then Memphis was 6. So this was his 12th career playoff game. And in about half of them, he's just been completely out of sorts. And that's the biggest takeaway for me. It's like Jokic and Cat, if they're both playing at their peak, it's a war. But one plays at his peak all the time, and the other one struggles to find it about half the time in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to find me defending.
It's Cat hate, though. I know it's Cat hate. So.
No, I think the stat that stands out from Karl's night is just they only had 10 turnovers, which as a team, which doesn't seem right. But he had 4 of them, and that's just, again, I think it goes back to your point of when things were going really well, I think it's easier for him because he's in the flow. That third quarter stood out so much because you're trying to like claw back, and that's been the one kind of Karl bugaboo that I think we both agreed with, is like him maybe feeling like Ant's not at that point. Ant didn't do anything at like 11 points. Like no one else on my team has double-digit points. No one's playing well. Rudy has no spinal cord at this point. And he's trying to just do it himself, and that's when it's like forced turnover. He was missing things around the rim, so he was bad. There's really no way to say it. It's just you gotta come back out. Because again, like this team now, it's not an excuse. It's just what the reality is. Like they're down 2 of their 8 best players. You just have to be better. I don't really care what offense, like the stats are going to say Jokic against Karl, because there's really not a lot of guys in the league that can slow down Jokic. But you, on the other hand, like on the other side, have to make someone work. Like you were talking about Michael Porter Jr. in transition and stuff. He's great. Jaden has always been a problem for him. He would have shut him down. But there is no Jaden.
Would you have put Jaden on Jokic?
No, because Jaden weighs about as much as this plant.
I know,
so
but like nothing else works.
I mean, listen, I think this is Chris Finch philosophy, man. Like if Rudy Gobert passed medical tests and can play, then like you're the defensive player of the year 3 times. Like you got to go as much as you can, and then throw Karl in a little bit. I mean, I bet you Jaden would have given him a little problems, just his length. But when Jokic just kind of hulks down and just starts throwing that ass into you, man, he just gets to where he wants to go. So, but no, I'm with you. I mean, Karl, there's nothing really. Yes, he had 10 rebounds, but there's just really nothing else to hang your hat on anyone on that starting lineup. And I think what you're trying to say is like you're one of the 15 best players in the league last year. Other guys, and that's why I'm trying to defend you, I guess, is like Karl hate. People are gonna think Phil's doing it again, but this is the same thing that guys. Yeah, I mean, if Kawhi Leonard had 11 points and 10 rebounds tonight on 5 of 15 shooting, he's gonna get crushed. Like guys just get crushed when they don't perform. Now this is the benefit, and like I thought Nickeil Alexander, I know his shot's never going to come around, but like I thought he made himself some money again tonight. Like that dude was buried on a bunch of benches, kind of a flop of a lottery pick, and like he's showing on a big stage now. He's worth money this summer. For Karl, it's like you've got your money and you can't score 11 points. You just can't. I mean, no one on the team scored 20 points. Yeah. That's embarrassing. I know their minutes were reduced because it was a blowout, but you got to find more ways to just make Karl a focus of this and stop. I mean, those 4 turnovers, I think, were probably all to Rudy. You just got to stop this idea that we got to get Rudy involved. Like, Rudy will be there for tips. Rudy will be there for occasional lob, but they force it to him, and it was just that third quarter, man, was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. I think they were outscored 32-14. I mean, that's just, you can't do that. You just can't do that, and it killed any sort of momentum that they had kind of built early on, because I thought they did weather the fan noise and the whole thing pretty well right away, but yeah, it's tough. Who else did you want to pick on? Anyone else?
People in the YouTube comment section are picking on me for even floating the suggestion of would you have, in desperation, put Jaden McDaniels on Jokic? Well, I understand he's giving up like 60 to 80 pounds, but
I think what you're trying to say is that this is the thing that if it gets away from you, by the way, on Wednesday, not to preview on game 2 or whatever, but Chris Finch is going to have to experiment a little more. Like, you just gotta, like, even the Austin Rivers minutes were like not terrible. Again, I know none of this matters because you're down 30, but you just got to kind of find like what can give us a spark. Like Josh Minot, I know it's a bit, but like he also had a really good block on Michael Porter Jr. He's the only guy on the team who's as long as him.
You need energy, right?
Right, I mean, and that's what Josh Minot is. The lawnmower nickname, he gave it to himself in Vegas because he said, I'm an energy guy. Like, once I get going, I'm like a lawnmower. I just don't stop. Yeah. And that's what this team needs because, again, like, tonight you kind of saw 35-year-old Mike Conley. Tonight you kind of saw, like, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, great defensive guy, can't really shoot. So you just got to find something. You cannot, like, it can't be game 3 at Target Center or game 4, and we're still like, well, I hope Jordan McLaughlin gives us a boost. You're going to have to, and I'm giving Finch a little rope here. Over for him, man. But you're going to have to, and he did it, I guess, in the second half. I know Jordan McLaughlin played, but again, none of this matters in the second half. You're going to have to be willing to just start to pull guys, and, they're going to start Karl and Rudy the whole series. But if by game 2 or game 3 it's just not working, stagger the hell out of them, right? Like, if Rudy's giving you nothing and he's a minus 28, just cut his minutes. You know what I mean? Like, you're in desperation mode to win some of these games, but that's further down the road. I just thought tonight everyone played bad. I'm sure they'll talk about post-game that they were tired from. I mean, they've been playing, I guess, playoff basketball for 2 weeks. I think that can catch up to you. But now you get a couple days to rest. No one plays over 30 minutes. So there's no excuses on Wednesday. You got to come out and try to steal that one, or you put yourself behind an 8 ball where we got to win 4 out of 5 times against the number 1 seed in the West.
Yeah. All right. Do you have one more player that you want to rip on, you said? Or somebody? Was it? Are you going to rip on Finch?
No,
well,
I
Finchy.
mean, no, Finchy wasn't great, but I also just like, again, sometimes I wonder, I don't know, if your kids just constantly act up and mess up and do bad things, like sometimes it's on the parenting, but sometimes it's like, man, Carl is an all NBA guy making max money and he's turning the ball over three straight possessions.
The parenting does seem a little suspect at times. It's like, all right, your kids are it's 2:15 in the morning, like you know where your kids are. Sort of.
I think
sometimes.
this isn't you, not you. I need someone then to tell me what Finch is supposed to do though, because it's just like,
Well, I mean,
we acquired Rudy Gobert and he can't stop Jokic for 2 plays in a row. Like I don't like what else like do you want Finch to park the actual team bus in the court? Like I just don't know what people want Finch to do. His offense breaks down at times, but he also, I mean, the guy that I would rip on, and I love the kid, is like Ant. Like the ball just gets sticky in his hands. Like he's not one of the guys that you always see where the ball's moving around and it's floating in the extra pass. Like if Finch wants a movement offense and he doesn't want to play high pick and roll and just run that to death, then you got to trust that your guys are going to make the extra plays. And a lot of times it just ends up with Ant or Carl trying to ISO. And again, I think what you would say is a good coach would be like, stop doing that. But I don't know. It's just kind of this mixed bag where I think he is trying to tell those guys that, but they're just not listening.
yeah, there's just and again, like it's one game of a 7-game series, and now if they look undisciplined and get run out of the building again in game 2, and then they
100%.
get beaten 5 games, then I think there's a deeper discussion to unpack about all of this. And I'm not like it's just let's see what happens in game 2 is kind of where I'm at with this thing. But one more thing, and then we can put a wrap on this, do a quick little 30-minute recap here. But I just want to say that this is mostly for the TNT crew, Gus Johnson and Anthony and Greg Anthony.
Yep.
Youth and inexperience is not an excuse for the Timberwolves. I heard it was like in the first 5 minutes. It might have been when the Wolves got down right away, and and Greg Anthony said these, because it's a direct quote, these young Timberwolves might have some playoff jitters right now. Okay, let's go through these young Timberwolves, the 7.5-man rotation they're playing, all right? Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, and Kyle Anderson have combined for 171 career playoff games. Karl-Anthony Towns has been in the NBA for 8 seasons. And now he doesn't have a ton of playoff experience, but some of that's on him for maybe not carrying teams the way that you expected. But you can't say that, they're just so young. Oklahoma City, I'll hear that argument. The Timberwolves have a couple young guys. Anthony Edwards is 21. Jaden and Nas are young, but they're not playing in the series here. So I just that was such a weird, misguided take by the TNT crew. Instantly back to Bally's with Michael Grady and Jim Peterson after that take.
I hated that too, because they're not young. But I will say, because I thought that was a really good stat that you dug up. How many games have they played? It was Kyle, Mike, and Rudy.
Yep, those guys have played, going into tonight, 171 career playoff games.
That's a great stat. I would just say from a devil's advocate standpoint that I would then expect my veterans to play better.
Yeah.
Because all 3 of those guys were terrible too.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes up and down the box score. Like, the 3 guys that I depended on, one of them was a team worst -28. One of them tried to fight the other opposing team, like is becoming a trend. And then Mike Conley was just non-existent. So I'm with you, though. That was just, we got to stop calling them the young guys, because especially without Jaden and Nas, like they actually have just one young guy. I mean, Nas,
and
even
if
24.
they replace Jordan McLaughlin with Austin Rivers, aren't they going to be one of the oldest teams in the playoffs then?
Right. Yeah. So I was going to say, go back to another guy who's probably had, if you would have added him into the playoff games thing, he probably would have got you over 200. I really, really like Taurean Prince and his story and his veteran leadership. He played 21 minutes tonight, scored 0 points and grabbed 0 rebounds and had 0 steals and had 0 blocks.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's why, again, pick a guy and we'll critique him. Like, no one was good. Everyone was bad. Embarrassing performance. The only thing you can really do is, I guess, you got to watch the tape, right? Because you got to make adjustments, but you also can mentally just flush it and
Carl.
just say, is that what he said?
No, isn't that what he said after the Lakers lost?
I don't know. He might have said it too. He loves to say
ago.
Flush it. That's just his thing. But you just kind of gotta, getting blown out in a football game or something, just maybe burn the tape and move on. But my biggest 2 things from this game were, one is that I don't know what you'd hang your hat on from the Wolves standpoint. And then I was pretty nervous. You said Jokic had a bad game. I'm with you too. the stats 13, 14, 6.
Not
but
a
that's
bad game. Just
for
not
him,
like,
though.
Not a peak powers game.
But the Jamal Murray stuff, he looked like he had kind of found his groove again. And Nikhil gave him some fits, but I really think if they're going to turn this around, it's just got to be. I mean, this is what Ant was saying all summer or all season. Like, I don't care about the All-Star game. I just want to make the playoffs. Playoffs mean so much to me. Like, I'm a playoff guy. I'm a big game guy. And I don't know if he still has an ankle thing or whatever, but that's out the window now because it's the postseason. Everyone's kind of banged up. I mean, Giannis is going to come back with a back brace. Like, some of these guys you got to play through it. Ant has to be the guy we saw in that Memphis series last year, or this team, they have no chance. Even if Karl's really good, this team is still, in my mind, only has a chance to pull an upset against a Denver team that I still think has warts if Ant is two-way Ant, is all-star Ant, kind of the future of the league Ant. Anything less than that, and they're going to be in big trouble.
The most depressing part about this game, fourth quarter, and you had DeAndre Jordan calling for lobs every time down the court.
Yeah, we should start. Also, too, this is now that we've transcended or moved away from actual basketball stuff. Something else that kind of bugs me, if you want me to really criticize Finch, the offense does really suck sometimes, and you would hope that he would just interject himself with some more plays or some more structure. But my biggest concern after that first quarter interview, he zips up his half zip all the way to the top of his Adam's apple. And that's like, dude, half zips are designed to just let it breathe a little bit. And that man has.
Well, how far down would you go with the half zip there?
In a half zip, I like to go about 33% of the half zip. Just,
undershirt, no undershirt. Should he let the chest fly?
If I've been on vacation and I have a nice little bronze going, I like to show it off. Or like you said, if I haven't shaved in a while, let it pop a little bit. But man, that guy is like, it's up here.
I wonder, is he a little insecure about the double chin? Maybe he thinks if he zips it all the way up, that he's kind of, creates a little bit more of a chiseled jawline appearance.
If Finch would just pull that puppy down like 50%, it might just kind of loosen up everybody for Wednesday. But I saw that in the first quarter. I was like, man, there's no point in wearing a half zip. Just wear a crew neck if you're just going to do that. So that was something I actually had typed in my notes that I wanted to tell you.
Yeah, it is kind of funny how the pandemic just got us completely away from coaches wearing suits and ties. Isn't it kind of weird? If you saw a coach wearing a suit and tie now, it would be jarring, right?
Well, I mean, I would take you one step further. I'm not really sure we should ever wear suits ever again. Like, I don't really know the point of dressing up.
Nothing? No formal dressing?
I mean, I did technically dress up for my wedding, and I jumped in the ocean in my suit, but I just think, listen, man, this team that we cover will kill me at a much earlier age, so I don't have much left. But, like, when you come to my funeral, just wear comfortable stuff. Like, wear sweats, wear joggers, wear Lululemon. Like, what's the point of wearing ties? That's what this is all about. This show tonight. What's the point of wearing ties? Stop wearing ties.
It's a good question. What's the most formally dressed sport now? I guess soccer. A lot of soccer coaches. Some soccer coaches, like English Premier League, they still wear ties, but you see some quarter zips and some half zips there too.
I do love
baseball. They're actually wearing baseball pants still, which is kind of funny. Can you imagine like Tom Thibodeau wearing basketball shorts and sneakers? Just pacing up and down the baseline.
We also need to have a talk about Tibbs is just trying really hard to just, like, at some point, Scott Van Pelt always has this thing where it goes away on top. You just let it go. Like, you're a great-looking bald guy. Tibbs is trying to comb over the 6 hairs. I saw today or yesterday in his press conference. It's like, dude, just trim them up and embrace it.
Dude, he should go with fully shaved but keep the beard. I mean, I'm a little biased toward that look, but I think it could work for Tom Thibodeau.
I do too. A beard, like a nice grizzled beard of a guy who's been in watching film for 42 straight hours.
42 straight years, actually.
I bet like college sports are the most well dressed people. I think basketball and stuff, they might still be wearing suits, or football, right? They're wearing their nice outfits on SEC game days or whatever. But I'm so glad that we got away from coaches dressing up. I love all the guys wearing the same half zips. But for Finchy, it's just hey, just take it easy. I think your job is probably safe no matter what happens this playoff series. Just pull it down a little bit. Breathe. Everyone should breathe.
His players are kind of embarrassed by it too. That's why they get off of these bad starts. So change your look good, feel good, play good. And he's violating the first part of that by zipping his half zip up too far. So by the way, also one more stat for you here.
Yeah, hit me.
Oh, 2 things. One, if you guys are still hanging out with us, and it looks like there are still several hundred people here.
Thank you.
At 1:00 in the morning, going into a Monday workday. So thank you guys. If you could click the subscribe button and the like button on the Score North YouTube channel, it'll help spread the word about Flagrant Howls and everything we're doing here with you Wolves fans. And also a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts also helps vault Flagrant Howls. The Timberwolves, including postseason now, are now 0-11 when trying to move 3 games over 500 this year.
That
Super weird.
That is the sign that they hang out outside of the ride when it's like you have to be this tall to ride the roller coaster. That's the sign. It's just this roller coaster will not take you too high or too low, but you're just going to cruise right at 500.
Ridiculous, dude. Every single time they've tried to move from 2 games over to 3 games over, and they fail.
You're including the play-in stuff, right? That's a really good stat too. I was scrolling through trying to see if I had anything else. Yeah, that's just a tough one. You got to kind of recover for Wednesday and just kind of flush that one away. I did think they had some defensive moments tonight that they kind of look good. Again, Nickeil Alexander-Walker just can't really rely on him to shoot, but he is gritty. He plays complementary basketball, so kind of got to pick yourself up here. I mean, I think I went into this thinking the Wolves had a good chance to win the series, and I still think they can win the series. The Nuggets are awesome at home. I think I said this to you and Judd. Like, they're 34-7 at home. So they're hard to beat, man. Like, they are a 1 seed for a reason, but you just got to steal one because a team that's that bad on the road, I mean, they'll look bad later in this series. So still a long series. Doesn't really start till the home team loses. But a lot to figure out by Wednesday because, again, who would you give your gold star to tonight? Maybe Mike Nori.
Mike Nori, he was the one that, he wasn't on camera, but he did do the interview with TNT coming out of the half, so good for taking one for the team there. And, I might give it to Austin Rivers for coming in cold. Hasn't played in about 6 months, it seems like, and knocks down a 3 and grabs a couple rebounds. The ultimate pro.
One last note in my phone. We as a society need to come together. I don't know tomorrow's a Monday, people got to work. I don't know if we need to protest or what. Every time I was watching basketball all weekend, a lot of TNT, every time the game would stop and go to commercial, and there's just this dude on my screen with 3 tennis ball-sized pimples on his head or his face.
The Dr. Pimple Popper head.
We have got to find someone else to advertise for the NBA. The NBA is worth trillions of dollars. Like, I do not need to watch, like, the Wolves go from 24 down to 30 down, and then this dude with these massive pimples on my screen. It was a tough Sunday. We'll regroup tomorrow. I hope everyone has a good week.
If you haven't consumed Dr. Pimple Popper content, I would especially if the Wolves are down by 30 points in the third quarter, I would recommend at least checking out the TikTok channel. It's pretty
since this is garbage time now and people are still listening, I'm going to let you cook and send us off, but hit me with a 30-second. I have no idea what any of this means. Explain to me why everyone on planet Earth was freaking out about Love is Blind.
Oh, my God. You're going to make me do this in 30 seconds
only? Yeah, you got 30 seconds. Garbage time.
All right,
Lob
how do I explain
DeAndre Jordan.
Love is Blind is probably the most popular new reality dating show.
Okay.
It's one of the top shows on Netflix.
Okay.
It's couples that are dating and meeting with a wall between them for like 2 weeks. So you're falling in love with people without seeing them, and you're asking them to marry you before you see them. And so you are engaged before you meet each other in person. And then you spend a month together in person and decide if you want to actually get married, meet each other's family, friends, etc. And tonight was supposed to be only the second time Netflix has ever gone live with anything. The other one was the Chris Rock comedy special like a month ago, which he waited a year to just fillet Will Smith. And I think that was actually pre-taped, and they ran it as live. This was the first actual live thing that Netflix has ever done. And they had technical difficulties for an hour and a half, and they bailed on it after an hour and a half, and they only showed it to the live audience. They had a bunch of influencers there and stuff to tweet about it and Instagram about it. And so it was this whole thing built up for weeks and weeks. The Love is Blind live finale, live on Netflix. And apparently the hamster that was running on the wheel was nowhere to be found or passed out or died. I don't know. But it was very disappointing.
The only one well, if the Wolves lose by 29 again on Wednesday, I think games 3 and 4 should be on Netflix. So we just don't have to watch them.
Coming up after Love is Blind is live, Wolves Nuggets game 3 from Target Center.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for explaining that, because my whole timeline was either fire Finch, trade everyone, or what is going on with my Netflix account. And I was like, I have no idea what's going on. So thank you. Happy
Yep,
Sunday.
anytime. Yeah, I recommend actually that you catch up on the latest season so we can do a full episode here during the summer on Flagrant Howls, just about Love Is Blind.
Deal.
So, all right, he's Kyle. I'm Phil. Thank you all you night owls for hanging out with us. All you masochistic night owls enduring an absolute atrocity in Game 1 here. But you know what? Game 2 is coming up on Wednesday. A couple days rest. We'll see what happens.
Wolf's back.
No, the hammer will come down when it needs to come down, but that time is not quite yet. So thanks for hanging out with us here on Flagrant Howls, your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.